From childcare to hospice care to immigration to trade, there is no issue I don't think that Congresswoman Linda Sánchez has not drafted a bill for. I'm so glad that you are on our inaugural show today, and there's so many topics, so many things I want to talk to you about.
Yes.
And actually get into the policy, if
okay.
you can believe it.
I love it. I love it.
I wanted to start just talking about, Leanne just talked to two of your colleagues about childcare. And it is an issue that I know you hear about back home. It's something that we as reporters hear from lawmakers all the time, yet you rarely see votes on this. You have a bill also with Congresswoman Bice,
yes.
the Child Act. Let me get this right. It would double the annual contribution limit for dependent care costs from $5,000 to $10,000 for families. Tell me a little bit about this bill. Why is it so critical at this time?
Sure. Well, childcare is incredibly expensive. I'm a single mom. I know this because I've lived it. I have a crazy schedule, and finding affordable quality childcare is very difficult. It's about 1/5 of every working family's budget, and it costs more to send a child to childcare than it does a year of tuition at a UC school in California. So it's very expensive. This particular bill that I'm co-authored with Representative Bice would double the amount that you can have taken out of your paycheck pre-tax into your federal savings account. Right now you can put away about $5,000 tax-free to use for childcare. It would double it to $10,000 to make it a little more in line with what the real cost is. So that's just one of the childcare bills that I have authored.
Just one of them.
Yes.
And remind me, you introduced this last Congress, right? Was that the first time you put this forward? So now it's another Congress that you've reintroduced this into. Do you think that this could be tucked in anywhere this year, or it might be something that maybe a House Democratic majority might prioritize?
Well, we try to build momentum, and so it's all about trying to build momentum within both the Democratic and Republican side.
Yeah.
Childcare is really a big, as I said, part of a working family's budget, and with rising grocery costs and gas costs, families are just really struggling. So it is something we need to get our hands around if we're going to have the workforce that we need. And so my hope is that we can address it sooner rather than later.
Yeah. You have another bill, as you teased already,
Yes.
with Congresswoman Carol Miller, also a Republican from
Yes.
West Virginia. You noted the importance of having to work in a bipartisan manner to try and get these things done.
Yes.
A little bit about that bill. Essentially what it would do if it became law, it would address the nationwide childcare shortage by helping offset costs of employee wages, incentivize higher pay for workers who care for children. This is almost one of those job sectors. Teachers kind of fall into this too.
Yes.
You kind of forget about them unless you are a parent who are, again, thinking about childcare, thinking about their kids going to school, making sure that they are getting just the best person to take care of them.
Yeah.
Those jobs don't pay well.
No, sadly, childcare pays very low wages, and that's why you see so much turnover and such a lack of availability. There's not a lot of people that go in that field and stay in that field. So what it would do is provide a tax credit to the employer only for the child care provider's wages. So they couldn't use it for administrative costs or anything else. It would be to make sure that the wages are high enough that people will stay in that job, and that they will be able to support themselves while providing a service that's very greatly needed for working moms.
How would you make sure, you mentioned the fact that this would not go to those administrative costs, right?
Correct.
Sometimes we do see policies introduced, great intention, but then there is some abuses to the system. You've obviously thought ahead and put those provisions in.
Yeah, definitely. There would be auditing of it to ensure that the money was going to employee wages and nothing else.
Okay. So, go ahead.
No, so it would help, incentivize people to stay in that career field and make it, you're kind of addressing it from the employee side of it, not just the family side of it. Yeah. We need it to be more affordable, but we also need to make sure that those employees are making a living wage.
Have you seen any momentum with this piece of legislation among Republicans? Because, you've been there on the floor so many times. I've been watching over some of the debates. A consistent thread for many of those fiscal hawk Republicans is, well, we don't want to put money in places that, there could be waste, fraud, and abuse. We don't want to continue to give money or at least the federal government paying for childcare, certain issues like this. I mean, I'm sure your colleague Carol Miller might have to do a little bit more convincing to her colleagues than you on the Democratic side, but it seems like it's a hard group to convince.
It is, because they are not the ones typically that struggle with that. I'm just going to be honest here. We had a hearing on childcare. This was several years ago, and I overheard one of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle mutter under his breath, "Can't the grandparents just watch the kids?" Well, both of my parents had Alzheimer's, so no, they're not in a position to watch, my children while I work. And many other families, the grandparents don't live in the same state, it's just not feasible. And I don't know what kind of Leave It to Beaver world they grew up in, but that's not the case now. In my district, both parents have to work outside the home in order to make ends meet. And so for them, it's not a pressing issue because they haven't had to live the difficulty of trying to juggle working outside the home and caring for kids at the same time. But I think that the women are starting to pick up that thread on the Republican side, and they're starting to work with Democrats because it is something that affects our workforce. If you don't have childcare, stable childcare, you can't be a stable employee. And economically, it makes sense to make those investments so that people stay in the workforce.
It seems like definitely an issue you're all going to have to keep convincing. Different life experiences, different districts that you all come from.
Yes.
Another issue that actually I don't hear about that often, but is so important and frankly something that many people may face one day is hospice care. Truly, I don't hear about that policy often.
Yeah.
You've introduced something with Senator Mark Warner, a Democrat from Virginia, essentially strengthen the Medicare hospice benefit. I'll be completely honest, I didn't even know that there was a benefit that Medicare was offering. If you could tell our viewers a little bit about what that is and how what you are doing or what this bill would do would help strengthen that.
So there is a hospice benefit when you're towards the end of life care, when you have perhaps a terminal disease and you've reached the point where staying in the hospital is not going to make you better, and you want to, be at home with your loved ones in your final days. You can access this benefit. There have been instances, however, of fraud in that system, and so the bill really strengthens some procedural things to make sure that if you choose the hospice benefit that you've signed up for, that people are notified so that you know ahead of time, so somebody else isn't using your benefit. But it's a way to sort of allow people the dignity to choose how they want to exit this world. Mm-hmm. And most people choose to spend it at home with loved ones rather than connected to tubes in a machine in a hospital. And that's a choice that people should have when they're facing a terminal disease. So I'm very tuned into it because, as I said, both my parents suffered from Alzheimer's, both passed from Alzheimer's, and so we learned about all these things because we had to. And one of the things I don't think we do a good enough job of is educating people about what benefits are out there so that when they get to the point where they may need it, it's not a complete mystery to them. What do I do now?
Right. And again, talk about, because again, you thought ahead about the potential fraud that has happened in this space. You wanted to address that, make sure that the people who need to access this can, and again, try and fight back against that assumption that there's waste, fraud, and abuse to strip out of every single provision that ever is introduced here on Capitol Hill.
Right. Well, no program is 100% perfect, but to try to take away such a necessary benefit because there are bad actors out there is not a solution to just say, well, this guy did this, and so we're not providing the benefit for anybody. And unfortunately, this current administration wants to really politicize it. They want to make it seem like only blue states have fraud in this system, which is not true. There's big cases of fraud in Texas, etc. And what they find is that bad actors sign people up for hospice care. People aren't even aware that their information is being used and that they've gotten this so-called hospice benefit. So like I said, in my bill, the person would be notified once that hospice benefit is accessed. So if they're not using the hospice benefit, they can say, hey, what's going on? And they can alert people to that there's potential fraud in the system. Okay. But again, it shouldn't be political. Yeah. It should be a bipartisan effort to try to reduce that fraud and preserve that benefit for families who really need it.
Okay. Well, good luck on that endeavor. I know there's only so much time left this year.
Yes.
I did want to ask about immigration. Yes. You wear a different hat when you're outside of the Capitol. You are the chairwoman of Bold PAC, which is the Hispanic Caucus fundraising arm, trying to recruit a number of candidates. But I want to bring up this issue specifically. Obviously, you're a Latina, so am I. Yeah. And we've just seen how much of the Latino community has been under attack or just
terrorized,
completely terrorized with what has been happening across the country for several months now. I don't have to explain to you that the Latino vote is not a monolith, and clearly it's a swing voting group. It's not reliable to one party.
Correct.
When it comes to immigration reform, this is a space that you have been active in for years.
Yes, for many years.
I mean, we'll see who gets the gavels in November, but there is a chance for Democrats to, again, take up this mantle of not just border security, but also immigration reform. Where do you start? Where do you start? And I know it's a huge, complex issue.
Yeah, well, I mean, the fact is that our current immigration system hasn't been updated in more than 30 years. And so the goals that we had for immigration 30 years ago are not the goals that we have necessarily for immigration now. We are an aging population. We need younger workers. So it makes sense to have immigration. And the economics of it are that immigrants pay far more into the system than they ever get in benefits out of it. Many people have this misconception that as soon as they land here, they can get SNAP benefits and health care benefits, and that's not true. They're not eligible. But people repeat that lie so often that Americans think, why are they getting all this free stuff and I get nothing? And that's not true. So we need to reform the overall system. We need, first and foremost, to hire more immigration judges so they can adjudicate cases faster and get the backlog through quicker. People should get an answer as to their immigration quickly. It shouldn't take years, and they shouldn't, it shouldn't be this long, drawn-out process. We do need to make investments, I think, in the push factors that push people to come here, namely working with some of the countries to our southern border to create a system where they can apply from within their countries and get the answers so they don't have to make that dangerous journey north and just show up on the border. Yeah. We do need to make investments in, technology at the border to make the job easier for Border Patrol to do their job. We want the right kind of immigrants. Nobody wants criminal elements. So we want to separate out the people who want to come here to be reunited with their family or to work, or who don't have ill intentions, from the criminal element, so that we can make sure that our borders are safe. Yeah. I will say this because this is a statistic that nobody likes to talk about, but native-born people in the United States commit crimes at a far higher rate than immigrants do. I know they like to take the one or two shocking examples and say all immigrants are criminals. That's patently false. It's not true. Native-born people commit more violent crimes than immigrants do. So that's not an excuse, although we do have to have good screening for immigrants. Yeah. I have a bill, the U.S. Citizenship Act, which would do all of those things, and also keep ICE accountable so that they can't wear masks or be unidentified or go into sensitive locations like hospitals and churches and schools to just grab people up without warrants and detain them. Sometimes they're detaining actual citizens. In Los Angeles, there are third-generation Latino Americans that are terrified to go out because they're obviously Latino and they're being targeted because of the color of their skin. That has created a whole bunch of havoc among our small businesses and among our commerce, because if people don't go out to spend money or to go to work, it creates problems.
There's so many different issues to tackle here. Yeah. One of the biggest challenges, and I know you've gone through this in past debates on whether it's immigration reform or frankly any other policy that the Democratic Party wants to get done, there's always the question of, do we let perfect be the enemy of the good. And
Right.
I bring that up simply because there were so many other attempts in the past, over a decade, right? Different gangs that put things together. And it got so close to passing, even in 2024, right?
Yes.
The Senate had a proposal. And had those things been in place now, right? Maybe we wouldn't be seeing what we have seen the last several months. Maybe, DACA recipients would have protections.
Yeah.
I mean, that's another angle to lawmaking, is sometimes you put these forward together, you debate it, it gets so close, and then you learn lessons from that.
Yeah. We have had a number of bills, whether it's the farm worker bill or the Dreamer bill, specifically targeted to subgroups, not an overall huge immigration overhaul, which is what my bill does.
Sure.
But we have had bipartisan support, and we've negotiated with Republicans, and we get a bill that's acceptable. It's not perfect to each side,
right,
but it's acceptable. It would address a problem, and then the Republican leadership won't let it come to the floor for a vote. It's very disheartening when you put all this time and effort into something that's bipartisan and should be easy, and then their leadership says, no, we're not going to do it. And it's always the Republican leadership that kills these bills because they do not allow them to see the light of day for a vote.
Yeah.
So,
what about even within Democrats? Because there's varying opinions.
Varying opinion, absolutely. Yeah. And to craft a good immigration bill, you have to listen to everybody, and you have to try to come up with a product that's going to solve the problem. Again, not going to be perfect for every person, but it's going to start to get your hands around it, because what we cannot do is just kick the can down the road and do nothing. Again, no major reforms to immigration in more than 30 years.
Yeah.
And it means that our system is just crumbling.
I heard that you were down for me to do some rapid fire questions.
Yes,
We're calling
yes.
this the 5:35 1 minute, because us reporters, we love the 1 minutes on the floor.
Okay, all
It's
right.
the magic minute that we're always bracing. We're like, how long are they going to go for?
Right.
So 1 minute. We only have a couple minutes.
Yes.
What is the best part about being in Congress?
The best part of my job is when you're able to positively impact people's lives. And I'm going to mention one thing that I was able to do with the Affordable Care Act is get rid of gender rating, which is when health insurance companies used to charge women more for the same plan as a man just because of their gender. My amendment made that illegal.
What about the most difficult part?
Being a Californian, it's definitely the travel back and forth and
bet.
the 3-hour time difference. It's really tough. It's really tough.
I hope you have a lot of miles that you can maybe one day use.
You do, but the last thing you want to do is get on a plane.
That's fair. That's
when you have
very
time
fair.
off.
I'd
rather take a road trip
than
get on a plane.
I've tried to do the red eye, and no.
That's brutal.
I can't. I'm like, I cannot. I feel like I can't show up for work.
It's brutal.
If you could fix one thing, what would it be?
For me, it would be childcare.
Okay.
Or, and I know this is more of a science thing than a legislative thing, find a cure for Alzheimer's.
Okay, interesting. Do you have a bill for that as well?
No, well, I have several bills
But
relating
it's more like
to
advocacy
caregiving
work
and Alzheimer's, yeah.
Awesome. Okay, it might be hard, but where do you get the best food in your district? And I say it might be hard because there's gazillions of options.
There's gazillions of great options, but without a doubt, Tierra Mia coffee in my district is my favorite.
Really? Okay,
Yeah.
what do you order?
I ordered the rice and beans frap with no whipped cream.
Oh, that sounds great.
It's amazing.
That sounds so good. Best committee assignments?
It's Ways and Means.
Yeah?
Duh.
Do you think appropriators would be like, no, it's us?
You know what's funny? The ENC people call themselves the Harvard of committees, and the people on Ways and Means just laugh. We're like, okay, whatever.
Yeah, you're like, okay, call us.
We're the only one we're the only
taxes.
committee that's mentioned in the Constitution. So we're
There you go.
the longest standing and the best.
Can't be more legit than that. What about the smartest member of Congress?
So I'm going to pick one woman and one man.
I think that's fair.
Don Beyer, I think, is just so intellectually curious. He's working on his PhD in AI or something.
Yes.
I mean, he's amazing. And then I think Madeline Dean is incredibly sharp on the woman's side. So.
Okay, favorite person on the other side of the aisle? And I think we'll have to end it there.
Friendly personality-wise, I'd say Gus Bilrakis, but somebody that I work with on a lot of issues would be Darren LaHood.
Okay, great. I appreciate the Bilrakis. I'm from Florida. He's right around where I grew up.
He's on my corridor, so I run
There
into
you
him all
go.
the time. He's a very nice man. Very nice man.
Bipartisan
Lovely.
relationships are so important.
Yes.
Well, Congresswoman, thank you so much
course.
for coming on our inaugural show.
Yes.
It was great talking to you, getting to know you
Great
even
luck
better.
to you.
Thank you. We will be right back.